Okay. All right, let's officially call the meeting to order, 7:01 p.m., and we'll let the minutes reflect that all the board members are present, as well as a number of staff and a number of residents in the audience. We have the October 22nd, 2014 minutes before us. Would entertain a motion of approval of those minutes.
I'll move to approve the October 22nd minutes.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Discussion on those minutes. Okay, seeing no discussion, the minutes will stand approved as written. Thank you, Lisa. Monthly reports. All of the monthly reports have been received. Thank you to all the department heads for having those in. We have no public hearings this evening. We have a number of guests on the agenda. And before we start, if anyone is here for Public Works item number 2 out of district user request from the town of Arundecoit, that will not be discussed this evening, pending some additional information back from engineering and town attorney. So that will be held and will be on our next work session agenda, which is the 10th of December. 10th of December. So if anyone's here for that particular item, there will be no discussion. With that, we'll move on to our first guest. We have Angus Steakhouse, 2126 5 Mile Line Road. Mr. Costello, if you would tee that up for us.
Thank you, Tony. Tonight we have with us Paula Catalano, who is the proprietor of the Angus House.
Welcome, Paula.
Thank you.
The town and Paula have been talking recently about signs that Paula is interested in maintaining on the property. She currently has a sign that's over the doorway that says 24 hour, it says happy hour 4 to 7, and there's an open sign in addition to that that they would like to maintain. I'll pass it out to the board's review. They'd like to hold on to that sign if possible, and they need approval from this board to be able to do that. The second portion of it is they have had A-frame signs, which they're entitled to have on their property. They're entitled to have 1 A-frame sign per code. They've had a couple. They've also had some signs on other properties, most notably, I think, Penfair Automotive, which is on the southwest corner of the intersection. And we discussed that. She would like to maintain that sign in place if possible as well, I think, right?
Mainly if we could have it on Wednesdays. For the one on the opposite corner, that would be helpful for us.
The sign, I'm sorry.
Have you had any calls or anyone express concern about the sign over the door?
No, this is an issue just because of the sign permit process. The signage that's on the building right now does not exceed, as a matter of fact, it's far under what is permitted by code. It's just the fact that they have a second sign on the property and they're asking for relief from that requirement. And I think you've prepared some comments as to why you think there's validity and asking for what you're asking for. You might want to express those to the board.
Okay. The first is we don't really have any frontage for our building. All of our signage is on the building itself because it's all pavement. So the only way to really see our signs is to be directly in front of the building. So where most restaurants have grassy area, they have a sign out by the road and one on their building. So that having that second A-frame, especially on Wednesdays, we have some special events that we hold Wednesday evenings. To have that extra signage over at the Penfair corner is helpful for us to catch some of the traffic on 441. The happy hour sign we have on the building, well, it's on the canopy, and it actually kind of blends into the canopy, so it's very tasteful and it blends in. I don't think it sticks out in a gaudy way. And the open sign, our windows are tinted in the building, so to put it on the inside of the building, you're not going to be able to see the signage, and our only windows in the building are in the main dining room, which is not really, we're not a bar, so to have a neon or bright light sign in the main dining room doesn't really work well with the restaurant. So we were hoping to be able to keep it on the outside where A, it's visible and it's not intrusive on the guests on the interior.
So, I guess, and Tony, did you want reopening up for
Yep,
discussion?
absolutely, absolutely.
I kind of look at this in two separate components. The sign that's on the building right now, I don't have an issue with that sign as it is proposed or as it is currently. I tend to agree with you on what you were saying about the tinted windows, and it is a part of the facade in some ways. And it's been there for a while now, I believe. So that part of this conversation, I'm fine with. The second part of the conversation with the A-frame sign on another person's property, I do have concerns about that because I just don't want to see the Four Corners area become this area where people's signs are on all different properties, and it just becomes this big hodgepodge of different signs. And I think if we allowed one business, or not to focus on the Angus house, but business A to put a sign in the property of business B, we're opening up a large door for other businesses in that area to want the same type of treatment from the town, and I'm not so sure I'm prepared to go down that road at this point. So the sign that's on the building, I'm fine with moving forward. Whatever approval they need for that, good with me.
Right.
The second A-frame sign on someone else's property, I have some concerns over.
I agree, but I don't like seeing two A-frames in one property. That's confusing in itself.
Is the second A-frame in this picture the same one that's been being put in the
Correct.
corner? Okay. So I know, actually, I will express before I concur with Andy. This may have been where it's been on one occasion, but it's also been right in the middle of the sidewalk on more than one occasion. So I have, had concerns from the get-go regarding the placement and
Right.
whether, that would be something to be a reliable placement by someone. Now, would this be considered, Jim, in the right-of-way?
Yeah.
Okay, so it's in the right-of-way already, which is not permissible for any sign.
Yeah, you're right, they'd have to get a permit from the state DOT to do that, but the DOT usually either grants or denies permits based on what the local ordinance calls for.
And also the fact that the sign is on another person's property. One of the discussion items we had, or continue to have as we look at sign ordinances and the usage of signs, particularly at busy intersections, is a safety issue. And until I came on this board, I didn't quite realize that people get hurt by signs. People get hurt by signs that are flying through the air when there's an accident and somebody clips a sign. What is your response to that? As to if someone gets hurt by your sign?
I mean, it's not in the, I guess I
The
don't.
liability would fall on you, correct?
I'm
And that's, I
assuming
think,
so.
one of the reasons why we have, in the past, had discussions whereby not only when it's in the right-of-way, but from a public safety perspective.
Well, you're right, but if you look on 5 Mile Line Road, the A-frame signs that we've allowed along a 5 Mile Line Road are also in the right-of-way or
But
maybe
not right at
adjacent
an
to it.
intersection here. where-
No, and as I say, obviously, they're showing more signage out there than they're entitled to. They could have one A-frame sign, you can mix those signs up. If one night's pasta night and the next night's veal night, you can do that, but you just can't have two of them at the same time.
Exactly.
Right,
That's
right.
how I thought it looked confusing having two at the same time in itself. But the one over here on Penn Fair, I saw that one day and I was like, is that Rosie's or your pasta? I'm thinking it's one of the, it's Angus house. It's confusing and it's just not appropriate. It's good to have it on your own property. That's fine, because you do have issue with being able to see it being kind of pushed back with only the signage on the building.
Yeah, I mean, I also look at it as an issue of fairness to the other businesses. So, we have to treat everybody the
Right.
same as best as we can.
Have you thought about a tastefully done A-frame sign, or a freestanding sign on the property? I know that it's kind of difficult right now because a lot of it's paved and you're thinking about doing a patio out there at some point in time. But have you thought about doing some type of a freestanding sign to give you better identification from the corner?
I really just don't see where there is a place to put it because parking in the front.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like that would cause issues with, our handicap spots are in the front and
There was some talk early on when I talked to you, that you might turn that into an outdoor dining area at some point in the future once the town works out the details for parking. Is that something you're still interested in doing, or is that something that's kind of gone by the wayside?
No, we're interested in doing it. I'm assuming though, it's going to be pavement or brick of some point, and in the wintertime, it will be parking again.
Okay.
So it will be a
So
double
it
use.
doesn't solve the problem for you?
No,
No,
unfortunately.
freestanding sign is problematic, I just think of people backing out.
Yeah,
and
yeah, I agree.
that's-
I agree.
That's a tough one, it's a challenge.
Okay, so the sign, which is over the canopy, over the front door, that's okay, provided it's not a flashing sign, so it's not, no flashing sign. And then from an A-frame sign, only on their property, not on other properties, Penn Fair. And then just one A-frame sign. So everybody's good with that approach?
That's
Okay.
consistent. Yeah.
And you'll follow up, Mr.
Yes,
Costello,
they-
with
They will need a
with a
permit
letter?
for their new sign, and I'll make sure Mr. Senegas is in the process of getting that resolved.
Okay, and then you close that loop back in writing so that they have that. Okay, great.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
The next item is Southpoint at Cove Apartment Complex freestanding sign design.
Mr. Spilletta, come on down. Mr. LaFountain, at the last meeting, the board reviewed Mr. Spilletta's proposal for a sign along Empire Boulevard to identify the Southpoint Cove Apartment Complex. I think if I remember correctly, the board had no concern for the actual size of the sign. There was a concern for the possibility of adding some nautical features to make it more in keeping with what you perceive the project to be. I did ask Mr. Spilletta to come in and talk to you a little bit about this. He had some concerns about the perception of nautical and what may or may not be in good taste on Empire Boulevard. And with that, I'll let you jump in and give your explanation of what you're looking for.
We're a little concerned. We wanted it clean. We wanted a very clean look. The clubhouse itself will have it'll have a tower, a lighthouse tower look. We have a clock tower. Of course, the buildings themselves look very nautical. We didn't want to have any ropes that will rot. We just wanted to stay away from that. We thought that it'd be a maintenance issue to have any ropes on there or anything like that. So what I want to show you today is really what it's going to look like. We have a video of what it's going to look like. So let's pass the video around.
Yeah, what we're trying to convey is that the idea of using, when people think nautical, what usually comes up, ropes, posts, rocks, boulders, those kind of things. We're trying to streamline it, keep it, like you said, a little cleaner, especially from the road view. When you get into the complex, into the community that's being built, you'll have plant material that'll kind of convey that kind of nautical theme, whimsical grasses, things that blow when the wind blows. But what we were trying to do with the sign was really bring the best nautical theme we could think of, was bringing water as an element into the signage. So I have a video that we'll pass around. We'll show you. The idea is the sign itself will have a cascading sheet of water that comes up over the top and behind the lettering of the sign. So it'll give you that nice glistening feel of water as it shears through. And I think the video will give you a pretty good idea. This is a much smaller version, but this will be a larger scale project that we're
Is it
talking
this
about.
picture only with water? I mean,
Correct.
There's water, I'll show you.
Yeah,
And it'll be backlit
right.
and then lit, the letters will be lit. So that's basically what it's gonna look like right there, coming down.
Can everybody?
No, we can't see
I
that.
guess
it looks like a
pass
here's the
around.
landscape,
Get
this
to
is
that.
the landscape around it. Did you see that?
Landscaping, no, that's important.
And this, what we're seeing right here is gonna be behind where it says Southpoint Cove?
Correct, right here.
Okay.
Basically, this elevation,
Right.
it'll cascade over the top of the stone.
The letters will project outside of the water,
Got it.
so there'll be a clear vision from the road. If they're
Okay.
behind the water, they'd be distorted. They'll also have lighting on it also. You have backlights, the light behind the water, and then lighting in the front that'll actually illuminate the letters in the sign.
Got it. And the illumination of the letters will include, will be Southpoint Cove Luxury Apartments?
Correct.
Okay.
And then
And the same will be
Eagles
true of
Nest-
the other one.
The Eagles
Correct.
Nest luxury condos.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh. That's very pretty. It's
Yeah,
like a
so the-
restaurant.
So the idea is the water will be uninterrupted. It'll just be like a sheet of water that comes down.
Is that okay maintenance wise? Just feel safe?
No.
Is
Mark,
that on
not gonna
24
breathe,
hour-
Mark.
Is this on 24 hours a day?
It's on 24 hours a day.
Was it
Yes.
like?
Yeah, there's a pump and it continues the
There'll be a
cascade.
vessel that contains the water in a continuous loop.
Yeah, you can keep it.
Is that secure? I mean, right there out in the road practically. It's pretty
Here.
close to the sidewalk.
Well, I'm fine with that. I think that gives a better representation of what
Yeah,
you were trying to say versus just interpreting it from the paper.
yeah.
So I appreciate you bringing this in.
problem.
I've kind of led the discussion, or I was kind of the one leading the nautical theme in the sign. I think after seeing the video, I'm satisfied with that.
Yeah, I am too.
Good.
Yeah, I think our thought was that it is hard to convey on a piece of paper, certainly something like that.
It is.
Initially it was kind of like too industrial kind
Mm-hmm.
of looking, so this satisfies me as well.
So it is fairly close to the sidewalk.
Yeah, that's what I was
It's
just,
fine.
Any concern for vandalism? or-
well, that's what I was asking,
No.
security.
Pumps are hidden, no, I think it's,
The letters will be
Yeah.
secured and
People
fastened to the
walking
around.
structure. so
you're right, there's not a ton of people walking that way.
There'll be more.
There will be more, yeah.
So the discussion early on was, what did the sign look like? I think we had worked through everything but that piece that we wanted to see some additional information. Now that we've seen that video, what is being proposed, is the board good with that next steps?
Yes.
Okay, so to move forward with that. And so they'll go through the process of obviously getting the permit in conjunction with the development of that facility. Okay? Good.
Thank
Great.
you. Thank you
And
for
again,
your
you'll follow up, Jim, with a letter so
Yes, I
that
will.
we have that as part of the file overall.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks for that
Thank you.
video, that's a good, good way
Have a
of
good
explaining
night.
it.
All right,
Yes.
thank you, thanks. All right, our next guest is Gary Smith at 1284 Northrup Road and 1271 Plank Road. This was on the agenda now a number of months ago. Gary had come in to speak with us, and it's with regards to an RV facility at this location, Northrup and Plank Road. Jim, I'm not sure if you've got any additional items you want to add.
No, I think you covered
this
it,
point.
Tony. When you say RV facility, it's an RV park, not a
RV park.
storage
Yep.
facility.
Yep. No, good point.
Commercial,
With
yeah.
seasonal sites as well.
Yep.
I know one of the things we were looking at, Mr. Costello was looking into researching on some of the zoning. And
Yes.
I believe you all had a chance to
We
look
did.
this over.
We did.
To see, what your thoughts were on that. It's pretty descriptive of, rules and regulations, how it would all flow. I don't know if you had any issues with that, or if that would be acceptable to the town to follow an ordinance such as that.
So, yes, we did have an opportunity to take a look at it. I know that there has, each one of the board members certainly will have an opportunity to, weigh in or provide their comments around that. Board
Yeah,
thoughts?
I'll start. I mean, Gary, I applaud your creativity with trying to do something different with that site. I don't know if I'm there yet. I'm not sure that use is the use that, that the town really wants to have in that section, that geographical section of the town. I'm certainly not going to speak for the other town board members, but you know, we've had a developer come in with homes, looking for some incentive zoning, and, you know, and now this proposal, and, you know, I'm just not in a position where I'm prepared to move forward with this particular proposal. It's just not what I think, you know, is what I'm looking for in that part of the town.
You know, I've talked to all the neighbors. I mean, the neighbors definitely would rather see this than a housing tract, which is what it'll end up being eventually. If we don't
Right.
develop this, we bought it as an investment property, so if it's not a, you know, something that can create an income like this and keep it, you know, as a park setting, it'll become another housing tract, which none of the neighbors
Well,
wanted that.
the property is zoned what again, Jim?
RE2.
Okay.
Right.
So, I mean, the zoning is there for houses.
Right.
You know,
But a different version of a housing tract than was proposed
Correct.
maybe a year ago. I was not in favor of the housing tract that was proposed over a year ago. But I do think that, being consistent, I do think that this is better suited for housing in the future. Not necessarily an incentive zone, but more to the RA2 zone, what it's currently zoned for.
And also talk about the comprehensive plan. It's not that long ago that we adopted it, and there was all these conversations about the different areas of town and what you wanted to see and all that. And, you know, and nobody ever brought up a RV park. It was never even in a consideration. So the neighbors might like it, but it wasn't anything that was brought up in the community as a need in Penfield. To throw that out there right now, after just going, it's not that long ago going through that process, I don't think is appropriate. It's interesting, like, you know, Andy said, I give you a lot of credit for being creative like that, but just don't know if it really fits our community out there.
I think that's what's challenging is that, you know, it's not just tweaking a use or an incentive zoning situation, it's rezoning. I mean, that's a big step for the town to take, to rezone a piece of property. And historically, as soon as actually just a year and a half or two ago, rezoning, the impetus for rezoning is the comp plan or some sort of development plan or master plan, as well as a petition by folks who are looking to have that rezoned. I don't see any of our plans pointing to even recreational use, any type of recreational or amusement type or campground or anything along those lines. And certainly our Parks and Rec Master Plan would have included something along those lines and would have directed from a facility standpoint where that would have been appropriate within the boundaries of the town. So, you know, I take more of a formal approach, more in terms of that not only have we never had everyone come to me or the town requesting this type of business or development, but it has not been brought up in any of the plans, which is what we use and what we look for to legally rezone something, to be able to legally, within our authority, rezone a parcel of property.
This isn't necessarily something that is going to benefit the members of the town living in the town. This is going to be something that was going to bring business into the town. So it wouldn't necessarily fall in any of those areas because it's not something that people would think of. You're going to be pulling from visitors that want to visit other family members in the Penfield area, or visitors that are coming into some kind of an event in this general area, and there's no place to house those people. And what that's going to do is, where this is located, it's going to support all the local businesses in the Penfield area.
I would disagree with you, because that's exactly what is the impetus often in a comp plan for commercial development, is not the residents saying necessarily, you know, we're going to use this campground or this RV. It's economic development. So that certainly is considered in a master plan, a comprehensive plan discussion. So I would disagree with that.
I think probably in fairness to yourselves, when the comp plan was being developed, my guess is a project like this, you know, probably did not even hit the radar screen. I mean, you know, if you think about it, you can travel around. I know that Mr. Costello searched quite a few different locations just to find a couple of references that he did. So that says that you know, is, while it may not be new overall, probably newer to this particular area. And so consequently, I think that from a comp plan, that probably just did not, again, hit the radar screen overall. And, you know, so, I mean, one of the things that, you know, that some discussions that I've had is this something that as we get ready for our next rec plan or our next comprehensive plan to include that type of discussion or thinking, you know, into that area. I think currently this board, and again, I won't speak for the board, but I'll if I'm out of turn, they won't hesitate to chime in. But I think this board has, for that area, has taken a look at what the comp plan has called for. And when the 208 single-family units came in, the board felt that that was too dense for that particular area, and concerned about extending the sewer and then just having all the parcels just continue to cascade or fall, you know, into that you know, very expansive residential. And so I think Jim may have opened up to say that they're looking at least at a piece of property in this area to develop it more within that conventional zoning within that area. And so that's currently what they're taking a look at, kind of respecting where the comp plan is today. I know you had indicated that this is not something you were looking to do like next year or in 2 years, but something, you know, from a horizon standpoint.
2-3 years.
And I think while there may not be today appetite, and I want to just underscore the fact that there aren't. I'm not going to say that wait for 2 years because it'll become more vogue. I'm just saying that as we take a look at our next recreation master plan, at least something like this for review by that group of residents to see how that may or may not fit within, you know, Penfield and what that potentially looks like. But for now, I would agree with the board that, you know, what we're looking to do may be a little bit, you know, out of that bounds of that comprehensive plan today, and that, you know, I would say that at this point might be something that you know, we would say no to at this point.
That was
How many
gonna
people are on
actually be
the planning board? There's only like a dozen people, right?
I'm sorry?
There's only like a dozen people on these planning boards, correct?
Well, typically, you know, if we have a, you know, when we do a master plan or comprehensive plan or rec master plan, what we'll do is we'll reach out to community members and try to get representation, you know, from across the community. You know, not only, you know, in this particular area, you would look to get some people from that area, but in general, when we do these master plans, we try to get a cross-section of folks, you know, from within the town. And typically that will range anywhere from, you know, 7 to 12 to 15 people. You know, you try to keep it under, you know, 15. You know, when it gets much more than that, it kind of gets unwieldy.
So 15 people are making the decision for the whole town, basically, is what you're
Well,
saying.
it's a steering, it would be a
Yeah.
steering committee. There would
So
be
if I
input.
get public support, a lot more than 15 people, if you're out there and you're knocking on doors like I did already, I went around the entire neighborhood, and I got 90, almost 100% support for it. If I go out farther and find out that it's still that same number of resident support, I mean, that's got to have an impact, showing you that the town would support that.
Tony actually brought up what my thought was gonna be, is that master plans are updated, and that's this is precisely the reason why plans get updated, is when there is some sort of new use, new type of development, you know, we're saying mixed-use development come before us for discussion, and the comprehensive plan goes through a full public hearing process as well, where the public comes in and comments on a draft, and there's a comment period, I believe, Jim, correct me if I'm wrong, regarding the the comprehensive plan.
Oh, yeah, you have to go through the public hearing process and everything else. And I'm anticipating
Public information meetings, thanks.
we would probably have to start that process again in 4 years.
And that involves, you know, that's public time that residents can come in, can comment, can submit in writing, can submit their ideas for development, can submit that, you know, they're opposed to or for something. It's not just a group of people sitting in a room saying, you know, what should we do in this area of town? It's quite a lengthy, several-month process.
So is it underway right now? Aren't you rezoning a lot of these areas right around us?
No.
Rezoning is very, very rare.
Well, the rezoning is something that, you know, can happen in two forms. One, if someone had a piece of property to ask for rezoning. Then number two, as part of the comprehensive plan, this board could go through and do, you know, some rezoning as they particularly change districts and things like that. But there is nothing underway today. The area, that area is zoned RA2, RR1 and RA2
Right.
in general through that area. But there is no active rezoning plans before the board.
Do they allow special use permits?
Well, I mean, that, you know, whether it be a special use permit or an incentive zoning, I mean, what I would say, you can call it whatever you like. You know, what I think you're hearing is that, you know, at this point, the board isn't willing to go through, you know, with this type of use at this time.
All right. So public support won't make a difference.
Well, you did go to your adjacent neighbors and surrounding area and get that, but that is a small percentage of the broader, you know, the broader community.
That's what I'm saying, if I increase those numbers.
Well, I mean, certainly, Gary, you know, I mean, there's no question that you weren't afraid to get out and beat the pavement to gather that information, and certainly if you want to, you know, continue to do that and expand that area and submit any materials, we'll be more than happy to and willing to take a look at that, you know, as part of the discussion.
But it won't make a difference really until
Well,
the next
I-
zoning, which is what, 3-4 years possibly?
I'm going to say that the Parks and Recreation Master Plan is due for an update in 2 to 3 years, I believe, because that's done every 5 years. And the purpose of that is because what happens is that you need to have a master plan in order to get to be eligible for any type of state funding and what have you. And then the comprehensive plan, as Mr. Costello had indicated, we'll probably look to start that up within the next 4 years.
And personally, for me, I would never say never to anyone who brings an idea forth. I would just say that in the last 2 to 3 years, maybe 4 years now, we've had 2 incentive zoning applications or ideas, I don't say applications, but proposals come before us, one for the intersection at north of Plank and Jackson, and then the other one for south of Plank and Jackson. And both would have incorporated incentive zoning, and in my mind, both of them were too diverse for the area, and I didn't look favorably upon either one. So again, my vision for that area is staying consistent with the RA2 or the RA1 as opposed to spot zoning or incentive zoning or cutting up that district. Because once it is rezoned, it's sort of like the ketchup in a bottle. You can't put it back in. So now down the road, if for some reason you choose to do some form of alternate proposed use for that plan, or if someone comes in with a different idea, now we're at a point where we have either this new zoning district right in the middle of this area, or again, it's not consistent with what the next comp plan or what, you know, future comp plans may look favorably on. So again, it's just it's sort of the location of where it is, and then the current comp plan refers to sort of high density north of Plank, and then sort of down towards the Atlantic 250 with sort of a broad, you know, expanse in the middle. So I just think at this time it's not consistent with where we are in that section of town.
To help to direct you a little bit as far as how I see the comprehensive plans kind of flush out with respect to new prospective uses or development, it's kind of two-pronged. It's the first prong is this use desirable and needed in the community, by the community? And if so, where is the best place in town for that to be? Because a comprehensive plan could take a look, certainly, at an RV park and determine that your parcel is not where it should be. It should be in somebody else's parcel. So that's the second approach as well. It is, first of all, getting past the hurdle of whether it's appropriate use and needed, necessary use, next step use with respect to planning, and whether this part of Penfield is where it should be.
All right then.
So I know at one time when you were before us, Gary, one of the comments that you had made is that you were looking at either developing that as single family or developing it like this, and
Right.
so whether if not this, then single family, because I think your point is that at some point it's going to be developed, whether it be
Right.
you and your wife, or whether it be your children, as that property gets passed on to them. But one way or the other, it's going to be developed.
I was just
And,
trying to keep it open and keep it
Green.
natural versus another bunch of neighbors in your backyard.
Yeah, no, I understand. I mean, that, there is, certainly some selfish reasons for doing that, being able to develop that, but also, kind of control and manage who's in your backyard. I mean, so
Right.
that,
That's
I understand that. Like I say, just because, and again, I'll just qualify this, just because this may be a no-go today, doesn't mean that in future rec plans or comp plans that this item doesn't come out on the table for discussion. I think it has to, because as I said earlier, it's not like these are all around. There are some here and there, but they're starting to develop more, within the areas. And I think one of the things that we wanted to do is just to continue to vet this out. So I think having some ongoing dialogue, still is worthwhile. But again, without the promise that we're going to be ready to go in 6 months or a year or anything like that. I just want to make sure I'm clear about that.
All right.
Okay?
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to action items, and we're under Law and Finance. We have the Southpoint Marina DEIS, FEIS determination of substantive comments. And so I'll just do a brief intro. I was going to pull that out earlier, but it's been well over a year, and maybe a few inches of materials that we have been looking at, held public hearings on, and gone through and this board was lead agency for this. What we currently have before us is that we held our hearing on the DEIS. We have some materials based on comments from four parties, is kind of how I summarized it. We have the DEC is one, and then we had three different individuals, residents and individuals that provided input as well. And I know that you the applicants have gone through and have commented on a number of those items that have been submitted. I know that this board, through staff, through Mr. Costello, has provided feedback back. I know that you have gone back and made some changes, some updates to that, with your engineers, Jess, and the attorneys for that. And so the document that we have is the most current document that the board has been looking at. So that's kind of a 2-minute summary of maybe a year plus of activity. Not to shortchange it and not to minimize it by any means, but just to provide a little bit of a summary. So what we have before us is is a document that this board to provide feedback to you as to what the next steps are by way of any additional input, or, if we believe that things have been adequately addressed, and then direct what the next steps are. So with that, Mr. Costello, anything additional that I did not touch on that you believe should be on the table before the board discusses?
Covered all the issues.
Okay, all right. So with that, board, general thoughts, comments?
Well, we've certainly seen many of these comments before. Some of them have been expanded upon, but I think in terms of reading the follow-up, I think it's important to focus that, we're looking at this in terms of an addendum, not necessarily a regurgitation of all of the factors that we have considered as far as how the process goes. It's more of an addendum in my mind of information, and I certainly took the time to review it and digest it, and I'm prepared to submit at this point that the comments have been adequately addressed at this time.
I agree. We've gotten all this input. I haven't printed it. It's on my iPad, for reference point. I didn't have any concerns. I thought you answered the questions, the concerns adequately. And I think it's ready to go to the next step.
Okay.
Yeah, I would concur with what Paul and Linda had to say. I mean, the reason why this board did a positive declaration is just to allow for some greater review of some of the issues that were raised. And, I think through the entire process, there's been 3 or 4 residents that have raised some issues, and I do think that those questions or points that they have made have been addressed. When I look through the document, and we have vetted this thoroughly multiple times, including a public meeting on it, there was a traffic study done pertaining to this project. Certainly the Eagle and the Eagle's Nest was discussed at length, and the project developer, the applicant, has scaled that back, and according to what I read, the DEC is not looking to issue any kind of a taking permit. Is that correct, Jim? Okay, so that's been adequately addressed by the applicant. I think dredging was addressed in the portion where the new docks are going to be. The part that I really was interested in was the biology aspect of the water. And I give the applicants their due credit for hiring a very prominent and well-respected biologist with the SUNY Brockport, Jim Haynes, and I think he did a very thorough review of that. I believe the DEC even requested that the applicant hire a biologist to take a look at the water, the State Department of Environmental Conservation, and ask the applicant to hire a biologist, and they did that. And so, according to my notes, there was no real environmental sensitivity that would be disrupted in the portion of the bay area or the cove area where the docks were going to be, and the docks really would have no significant negative impact on the water quality, and that's a third-party assessment, a professional trained professor who gave that testimony before this board. And I think, another issue that was addressed, that was raised, was the turbidity. And I think if boaters are responsible, which I think most boaters want to be responsible, you're always going to have a couple hiccups here or there, but that happens everywhere, that shouldn't be of an impact either. And so when I look at those issues, the traffic study, the Eagle, the dredging, the biology, the turbidity, and the fact that there will be some public access to the waterfront, I think in my assessment of the documents that I have received, that the questions have been adequately addressed, and I concur with both Councilwoman Metzler and Cole that this document is prepared to move forward.
And I I want to piggyback on something that Andy mentioned. I think, Jim, earlier on, at one of our work sessions, something that I asked or struck me as odd was that the DEC originally, or at least in previous correspondence, was less concerned with the water side of this project than they were the land side. Is that correct?
No, I wouldn't say that's true. I think that they were very much looking for a benchmarking of what the water conditions are out there today based on what's been out there for a number of years. They wanted to see what kind of impacts the existing boats had as well as the proposed. And of course, the Eagle's Nest is in proximity to the site, so they were concerned for that as well. So I would say it was a balance. They were concerned for both the water side and the land side.
I think a lot of the information we got made it look like it was kind of top-heavy land oriented until later in the process, I think, is when it seemed to be more directed that way. But I would also offer up that in addition to this board, as liaison to the Conservation Board and having attended all of their meetings by which they, went out, they did field studies of this, they did their due diligence, and certainly had significant conversation amongst themselves as an advisory board. We've taken their considerations into account as well, and I think that that's a very important part of the process, given the factors that were raised, and I think also to the submissions by residents, interested people, certainly made this project a better one, and I appreciate everything that was submitted along the way. As voluminous as it got to be, it certainly, I think, eventually made this project a better project. But I did want to just commend once again our Conservation Board, who took their job very seriously as always, but had certainly a real interest on the various levels of this project.
Okay. Anything else? Certainly you took into account traffic and drainage. We asked for some additional information as it related to those two specific items. That information had been provided, and certainly the other item that was of big concern was the public access and having the public access in and around or expanded into that area overall. So I think for those reasons, and I think what comments by the board, that we believe that the comments that were submitted by the DEC as well as the three other individuals that commented have been adequately addressed. And so from a next step standpoint, what we'll do is we'll ask Mr. Costello, who's been your liaison up to this point. You need to refresh the document. I think all of the components are there, but as I take a look at the cover page of that and what have you, we need to just make sure that we finalize that particular document, get that submitted. And once that is submitted, then we'll be looking for a resolution to come before the board. And that resolution could be as soon as next Wednesday evening, provided the materials are in by end of day tomorrow. And if not, then would have to go to the December 3rd meeting. So I'll ask that you guys work with Mr. Costello on that.
Yeah, I'm sure Jim and I can get together tomorrow morning and hammer out any items, and we'll have it back to you by the afternoon.
Well, I mean, we have continued to receive information and updates, on this along the way. So I believe, updating that first page is probably the biggest item. And then if there's any other, small items here, I think, in here, as we could differentiate, what was said and what was added. Was bolded, bolded out. So we'll want to make sure that that format, is consistent, across the entire document itself.
And Jim is familiar with that, I assume.
He is. He is.
Tony, I have one last
Yep,
question.
absolutely.
I know the State Department of Environmental Conservation has been involved with this project from the very beginning. Has our town attorney taken a look at the document, and is he okay with what is moving?
He has. Mr. Horwitz and Mr. Costello and myself, not as much as the two of them have spent time together to review the document. And I know as recent as yesterday on Veterans Day, Mr. Costello spent a good piece of his day with Mr. Horowitz going through, the documents. So Mr. Horowitz has been involved right through the whole process.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, no, thank you, I appreciate that. Other comments, Mr. Costello, anything additional that we did not put on the table that, or any questions that you have?
No, I just to reiterate what you stated, once the document has been cleaned up, it will then be submitted to all the involved and interested agencies as required by seeker for their review. There is a 10-day waiting period after it's been received for them to submit comments back to the board to be placed into the record. After that period, the seeker process is completed for the project.
And is it my understanding that the process that during that comment period, any comments received, they're basically received?
They're submitted as part of the
There is no
record.
further discussion, there is no
Right.
further hearing or discourse regarding those comments? Is what just for
After
the
that,
record.
after that period is elapsed, as required by seeker, the board can then move forward with the actual site plan review process and finalize that as it sees fit.
Okay. All right. Any questions, additional questions for the board or staff at this point?
Yeah, well said, thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
So the ball's in your court as to materials in, as to when a resolution will be before the board.
Perfect.
Okay? All right, thank you. That will take us to our next item, which is right-of-way transfer on Mott's Lane. Mr. Benway.
Thank
If you want to come up, put together a map showing.
So are these,
Come up.
oh, okay, thank you.
Who's that? Who are you inviting up?
He,
Yeah.
the owner of the, yes, the owner of the property,
His name?
to Ted, I don't know his last name, Rick.
Pitnero.
Pitnero, thank you.
Brother of Marlene.
This piece of land, which is west of Mott's Lane. Dark lines represent the current property boundaries for the two properties. If we look at a 60-foot right-of-way for Mott's Lane, that would be the red lines. Mr. Pitnero allowed us to deposit some of the material in here, which will allow for a future extension of the rear portion of Mott's Lane. We have had communications together talking about the possibility of swapping some of this land for this future right-of-way. There's also be a small piece that would not be, would be still available, but it would be on the other side of the right-of-way. Looking at it, it's about 13,000 square foot lot proposed. This is, if you extend it out to here, it goes to about 11,816 square feet. With a small portion down here, about 980 square feet. Results in about 12,000 square feet, slightly smaller than what he has today, but he was very interested. Is there anything you want to add, Ted? I know he's tried to market this project to a parcel to a number of businesses.
Right, yes.
They did want, they would like, they do want, the access to the road is certainly a positive. It just allows a little bit more
So this
use of
would
the lane.
aid,
Pardon me?
this would aid the marketability of your
Yes, it would, yeah,
property.
definitely. But the only thing I had was that, like, I think I talked to Jim about it too, is that you're giving me so much of the land to one side, am I correct? We're exchanging square footages and so forth. What if I were to find a possible tenant like Pizza Hut or Chick-fil-A or whoever the case might be, that wants to come in and build there, okay? Now, is that gonna deprive me from, is that, let me ask this maybe this way, is that a corner lot? Would that be considered a corner lot? So now your setbacks, I'm worried about my setbacks in terms of any particular business that might come in terms of, now if you're giving me 80 feet and you're gonna take 60 away because of, it's a corner area or a side area, to me, it's like defeating the purpose a little bit, but.
Could I answer that?
Yes.
All right, first thing I'm gonna tell you is the area on the south side of the roadway is basically useless to you
Right.
as a property owner, so
Right,
that would
right.
probably have to be incorporated into the right of way as we make this trade, if we do it. The second portion of your concern about the corner lot issue is the main reason why the Four Corners, the town board has jurisdiction over the Four Corners is to give flexibility to design and features within the Four Corners to ensure that there's continuity among all the properties and you don't have something sticking out like a sore thumb. I mean, most of those properties down there have houses or buildings that are closer to the right-of-way. So the intent over the last several years on the town board's part is to maintain that continuity. And you see that when they built Dunkin' Donuts building. That's out closer to the road than the code requires in other zoning districts.
Right.
So in essence, the board has total authority over how the layout occurs and how it's approved. It really depends upon what you bring before the board for it to make that decision. You know, obviously you can't put 5 pounds of sugar in a 3-pound bag, so you've got to scale it properly to accommodate the site. But it does give you the flexibility where you're not going to necessarily have to meet an 80-foot setback requirement from both property lines. It's just a function that it has to fit properly, it has to be consistent with what's happening in the Four Corners, and it has to be scaled properly. I mean, that's probably the easiest way to say it.
And certainly, I think, Jim, correct me if I'm wrong, if you came in with a potential development opportunity,
Right.
I think that'd be a fair information to bring up at that time is, you know, the bargain for exchange that you did here, and that what you relied upon, you know, when you had somebody come to you to propose some sort of development. I think it's important information, not that we can give you an answer tonight, as Jim said, because it depends upon what you'll be looking to do there. But I think it's certainly fair enough to have that brought up as.
Exactly right, and as part of that process, if somebody comes to you and says they'd like to come before the board with a proposal, the board is always open to developers coming to visit them. They can bring in a sketch plan. The board does not require full-blown plans. They're always asking people to save money before they go full throttle on it. So you would have the opportunity to submit a plan that was basically a sketch for the board to review. Certainly the town staff will review it as well to give recommendation to the board as to what's necessary for the site. But there are steps that you take to get to where you have to be. And certainly as you get down the road through those steps, if you get to a point where everybody's comfortable with what's being proposed, you move forward. If for one reason or another they're not comfortable, whether the board or the applicant, then, you know, they either step away or somebody else comes in and looks at the property with a different design.
Okay, good. Depends on what comes in and so forth.
Exactly.
So let's get back to the conversation for both Jeff and yourself. That little piece of property to the south, that little block right on the bottom, what was the intent of keeping that out separate?
It wasn't, I'm just pointing out that the right-of-way kind of bisects.
So you were just
It's
looking at it?
left over, whether,
Okay,
like Jim
I
said,
got
I don't
it.
think you can
I-
develop it.
I got it.
No,
It would just
couldn't get in there.
Yeah.
Okay. I just want to make sure you weren't holding it for some particular reason or
No,
purpose.
no.
It's also a grade issue there too, I believe, isn't it?
It drops off
Yeah,
dramatically.
it drops off
You wouldn't be able to
very,
access it.
very dramatically
You couldn't
there.
fill it because of the floodway.
Right.
So just for clarity, it would.
He would actually,
To include that.
I was hoping that this would all go to the town.
Mhm.
Right now, that's all
He wants,
filled in.
this is the part he wants to retain.
Okay.
And then the triangular piece to the east, would that be proposed to
If
be?
you want, we only need 60 feet of
Right, I mean,
right-of-way.
that's
It's
what
just an
our,
excess piece of land.
that's what our
and
design criteria
that could go
calls for.
to
What's the footage that you're giving on the front, on the north side?
This piece,
Up the top, right?
this whole piece.
No,
The red area.
the right of way, no, right in there.
Here,
What's that, is that,
that's the right of way, that's 60 feet wide. That's our standard road.
no, I mean, the
Jeff, I
land.
think he was asking how much.
You're conveying land to me.
What is
I
the
don't-
square footage of the land you're conveying to him, is the question.
Up on the top where it curves on the north side, up to the frontage, on the front,
Yeah, here.
right there.
That just follows the radius.
Yeah, how many feet?
I don't know the actual number, I'm guessing if it was 13,000 before and afterwards we're at
You know what I'm
12,700.
saying?
It's probably
Well, don't guess.
pretty
Yeah,
close.
yeah,
I don't know
no.
what the actual number is, I don't have it
Well,
here.
so you're conveying so much of the land to me, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And in lieu of that, you're conveying land back to us.
And I'm conveying
We're
land
trying
to
to
Bob.
balance it out, but it doesn't look like it's gonna balance out exactly.
But
It's
it-
actually
important
I think we're
that they-
conveying
1,300
more
square
land
foot
to you
lots.
than you're conveying.
No, it's important that, yeah, that.
Well, and
Yeah.
and certainly both parties benefit. We certainly benefit because we're trying to continue Mott's Lane. You benefit because it now widens out your property to give more developable area for whoever may decide to develop it at some point in the future.
Yeah.
On a publicly dedicated road.
On a dedicated
Yes.
road, and certainly the design as to where the access point comes out onto Mott's Lane would have to be determined based on good engineering practice. It may come right across the way from Dr. DePietro's property, or it may come to the back, wherever the case may be. But I think, again, that depends a lot on what's being proposed for the site at the time you come to us.
No.
Wider frontage too, which gives you more visibility to the road.
So it's not necessarily square footage, a square foot for a square foot exchange, but for purposes of our approval, I think we would need to lay out an area, I mean, as far as a square footage.
Well, and again, remember, most of the four corners at one time were single-family residences, and those properties have all been rezoned to allow for commercial development. Obviously, it puts constraints on the property owner because you had a single-family residential lot, which is now being converted to commercial. And the boards, both the town board, the planning board, and the zoning board have all been supportive of development that, allows for some flexibility based on that issue. We put people at a disadvantage if we don't give them some relief, because you're basically stuck with, in many cases, a 100 by 200 foot lot or less. And in the four corners, most of them are less. So.
I think my emphasis was to make sure that the property owner is aware of, that your question gets answered as to how much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A buyer comes in, correct? What's your frontage?
Well, we're gonna have to work that out.
You know what I
before-
mean?
Certainly you're gonna wanna resolve this before you go to sell the property.
Yeah.
So this
Yeah,
should happen.
I think-
A legal boundary would have to be prepared that would give you the dimensions
Just have to be done by
of the
resolution.
parcel.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think tonight's discussion was more probably information, than anything else. And I think the action, so we can show this as a held item for a future meeting. But I think the thing we need to do is have a broader conversation about the piece on the east. We need the 60-foot right-of-way, and we've got the road in. So that little sliver, that triangle sliver on the east side to DePietro.
Right.
And then the discussion about, is there the opportunity to do the land swap here so that works out to, continue to extend Mott's Lane, but again, gives the owner an opportunity to, have a larger lot, so that can be a win-win. But I think the devil's in the details, Jeff, so I think we need to, kind of work out all of those details overall. And then, the discussion around that smaller piece, I see that you blocked it off for the right-of-way, but that smaller piece further to the south as to what happens, with that. And it would seem to make sense that it would be part of that broader, who's the property owner to the south?
Is it,
It's the apartment complex.
not,
At that point,
I thought it was Calabrese's.
Calabrese.
yeah, I think that's Calabrese.
Calabrese in there.
Well, he
He owns
owns
a
the-
very small portion of it. but-
So, we need to have some conversations about that. So I think, the devil's in the details. I think if we put the details together, show this as a held item, and then when you have that, we'll bring that back for kind of a final resolve as to how we move forward. And if there is a land swap, there probably will need to be, I'm guessing, not having the benefit of Dick Horowitz here, but I'm guessing, Dick Horowitz will probably say that we need to, appraise each one of those pieces of property, so that, that the town can't give more than it gets, and obviously in the best interest of, the property owner as well. So we just need to make sure that we dot those i's and cross those t's.
Okay.
So we'll show that as a held item, and then once we have those details, then we can bring it back for further discussion. Okay? All right? Thank you. So kind of on the record, off the record, was she a good student?
She looks familiar, I know.
We understand.
Evidently not.
It's been a
As you'll-
long time
She
ago.
wasn't a troubling student.
See?
Did I have you student?
Yeah.
As you were making your way up, she said that's it.
Was it here or Webster?
Yeah.
About 100 years
I'm glad
ago,
the
right?
students turn out so well.
1979.
That's
It's been
right.
good teaching.
There you go, that's your good teaching.
That's Jim, I
She
had his
hasn't
two children.
dissected anything for us yet.
I had his two children too.
Very good.
So I'd like to thank Jim here for all the help he's given me too. Okay.
Thanks. Thanks, Ted. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. Thanks for coming in.
You're welcome. Thanks, Ted.
Okay, we will, excuse me, we'll move on to item number 3. Review of property maintenance bids for 2015. Mr. Costello.
Thank you, Tony. I'm acting on behalf of Andy Vegas, who's been reviewing bid quotes over the last several weeks. He did send you a comparison sheet for the 2015 season. There were 2 bidders, Flint Landscaping and Snow Plowing and Bloom & Sons, Inc. There were, I think there were 5, 6, 7, 8 criteria for item descriptions that you requested. In each case, Boone & Son won every single quote, or was lower on every single quote. So his recommendation to you is to hire Boone & Son. They met all of the minimum bid specifications. They have worked for the town in the past. They provided us with good service over the years. And he has a good working relationship with them as well. So, and I'm noting here in several cases they were quite a bit lower in some issues here, but fairly competitive on most.
They were the low bidder on all of the items, all 7 items that I think that we use between the 2 bids received. They were the low bidder
That's what
on
I was
all
going to
items.
clarify, was there anything that we could piece out in?
Every single quote was lower than Flint on
Yeah.
every item. And I think Flint has worked for us in the past, so they
They
are
did.
familiar with our processes, and
Yes.
we have a good relationship with them as well. But in this particular case, they were able to bring their quotes in lower in every case.
So I am fine with this, and this is standard operating procedure that we see every year, but should a situation arise where Boone & Son can't get to a property within a reasonable amount of time, do we have the option of going to the other one for that one parcel, or do we just say, you know, okay, you're not gonna get there for 4 days, or something like that?
Well, in both their cases, they've both worked with us in the past, and I don't think we've ever had that problem with either one of the firms. I believe one year, if I'm not mistaken, early on, that we did have a...
We split the duties.
We did.
Ba- Just based on how the bids came
That's
in.
right.
Right.
We awarded Boone & Sons the lower piece of the items, and then Flint was the other piece of that.
That's correct.
And they were so competitive that we said, let's give both, split it and give both the opportunity.
Yeah.
Last year Flint did not bid at all. I think they just missed that. And then when we opened the bids here Friday, we only received 2 bids. We did have 3 or 4 bid packages picked up. So Boone & Sons were the lowest one in all the categories.
Okay.
For that.
And I would think, certainly Boone & Son has been a very good contractor for us over the years, but I would think that they would be moral enough to say to us, look, we can't get there for 2 weeks. If you want to go out and get somebody else to do it, I would suspect they would say that'd be fine. We just haven't had that problem. They do get to their sites when we ask them to do that. So.
Okay.
So if you think about it, I mean, if you think about it, unless it's an emergency closure situation, which we typically don't have that, and if there's a fire, typically what happens is the fire department will go through and do the emergency closures with that, and then they work with the respective insurance company. In this case, it's typically where folks have abandoned, houses foreclosed, the house is abandoned, nobody there, and Andy has his criteria that he uses, and then reaches out, and they have, I think the bid specs call for a 24-hour turnaround unless otherwise agreed upon, typically due to weather. So if you got, they're trying to cut grass that is a foot tall, and if you've got 2 or 3 days of rain, they'll try to get it, the next available, dry time type of thing.
Okay. Good.
Okay, so we'll do a resolution for Wednesday night, reflecting that we did have two bidders, that Boone & Sons was the lowest responsible bidder, and that we'll award that contract, and that'll be for starting January 1st, 2015 and running through 12/31. So, okay. Typically, this time of year, we do not have a lot of requests. Once you do the final mowing of abandoned properties, typically you don't have anything more until spring of the next year. Okay, this takes us down to Public Works, and we've got Extension 56, and we're starting to see some light at the end of the tunnel. Mr. DeFrancesco?
Thanks, Tony. Yes, I think so. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Ready to do this? Because if we are, next week, we'd like your authorization to put this out to bid. That would set a bid opening date of January 23rd next year. Seems like a long time away, but we do have the holidays in there, and it's a large project, as you know, and that will give prospective bidders enough time to look at and evaluate the bid specs, and also position the project to be one of the first ones out of the gate in 2015. The week of December 11th, the town clerk's office would need to publish that notice to bidders in the paper. Amy and Lisa are aware of this and have concurred. Jim Pete at MRB Group is prepared to have plans and specifications available for bidders on the 19th of December. And as I said, the bid opening date would be January 23rd of 2015. The week after the 23rd through the 28th, which is a town board work session evening, we'll be evaluating the bids, MRB Group and staff, and be prepared to discuss the results at that work session on the 28th of January. And then tentatively, we come in on or under budget. February 4th, we'd be ready to award a contract, and then from there, it's just the normal calendar events with a contractor, getting his bid, getting his insurances, his submittals together, material submittals and so on, rolling right into starting construction.
Mark, is there a process by which the folks the residents who are involved in this are notified of this timetable in some way? So they're familiar?
We've been using postcards, and most recently, we've been directing them to the website.
Okay.
But I think that, we're gonna have to get them used to looking at the website. They're somewhat reliant on us sending them hard copies, so we'll shoot one more postcard round out there, reminding them from this point on, check the website if you want. Even once we start construction, I'm hoping it'll be weekly updates,
And then there'll be a point person as usual for them to contact once
Yeah.
construction starts.
Yes.
So by the way of a couple of loose ends, we had a couple of outstanding easements. One of them we have resolved. The other one was an estate, and Dick and the attorney for the estate they've worked through that item, and we had a resolution at the last board meeting on that item. And then we had a couple of items from the county that we've been working on with the county ledge and real property. And one was with regards to an easement, and the other one was a right-of-way item. And we've got those ironed out to Mr. Horowitz's satisfaction as well. So we needed to get those taken care of because we didn't want to get to this process and have it go to bid and then not have that last easement that might stop the whole project. So we're at a point of ready to go, and I think that postcard that goes out, Mark, needs to maybe have a little bit more information other than to say, check the website. I think we give what that next milestone is. The next milestone is, because we've got 72 or 73% of that district that have indicated an interest in the sewers. That what we do is we say that we're taking that next step, which is we're going out for bid, and then make reference to the website, and then, you know, for us to adopt that as we, you know, have different milestones, so folks have that overall. And then from that final design, you know, standpoint, is Jim Pete and MRB gotten everything that they need for that final dot that I, cross that T component of things, or do they still have that you know, review with the property owner to say we can go on this side of the tree or that side of the tree, or that tree has to come out?
No, I've been working with MRB and the residents
Okay.
right along, and we have got, we've met with
So that-
everyone we need to meet with.
And that piece has all been accomplished, because there's a good chunk obviously in the right-of-way, but still, even though it's in the right-of-way, residents, you know, that grass is theirs, you know, from their perspective, and they want to make sure that they understand what's going to be replaced.
Whenever you're going to a 60-year-old neighborhood, you know, vegetation, trees are always an issue.
Right.
We've looked at each alignment
Good.
in each tree. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Great.
So, we're there,
Yep.
you know?
All right, great.
Remind us again when we started this process by way of petitions and getting all the i's dotted and t's crossed for this project?
Early 2012, maybe 11.
Yeah,
We had a year delay, and yeah.
right, yeah, from a funding standpoint, so, yeah, good effort it's on your part, Mark, for kind of being the steward
Thank you.
of that project. So we'll get a resolution, we'll get it in by noon on Friday, and we'll look to move forward, and
think
the
it's
next
you.
big piece will be, will we get very favorable bid prices? Excellent. Okay, great, thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Thanks for the update, appreciate the effort. The next item, we'd indicated earlier in the meeting, now district user request from the town of Arundequoit that will be held and not discussed this evening. That takes us down to informational items. Mr. Costello, LWRP update.
Thank you, Tony. I just want to bring to the board's attention that we are closing in on finalizing all the details of the LWRP. The context of the document is completed. I'm working with the planning department right now on cleaning up some old maps that had to be revised and upgraded. So over the next several days, we'll be doing this. I just wanted to put this on the agenda tonight. I anticipate probably putting a resolution in for you, setting a public hearing probably in December. But I know that we're going to be tight for time in December with various meetings and things. So I just want you to be aware of it. It will be sent out to you, and certainly it'll be on the website for the public to review. This has been a long process. It's taken us almost 7.5 years to get this resolved. We're still working with 2 other towns. Luckily for us, we're ahead of them, and ours is near completion. They still got a ways to go yet, but they are working on it, and certainly I want you to have the access to that as quickly as possible. So if there are any comments, we can modify as we need to. Certainly, the public will have input on it at the public hearing, and we'll take that input as well and address it. So just wanted you to be aware of that.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, Jim. Appreciate that. And thanks to Mr. Moore as well for his involvement with that.
And he's actually
I think when he,
chairman of the
I was just going to say, when he originally got involved with it, I'm not sure he knew that it was a 7 to 10 year assignment. So thanks, Ian.
Sounds about right.
So appreciate
Happy to
that.
help.
All right, thank you. Move on to public safety. We have the 5K run, Gilda's Gallop update, Mr. Costello.
As you know, they did modify their field of run, and I think it's probably the safest and best that they could come up for that area. Thanks to Zach Nursing Jr. and the planning department, we have generated postcards for everybody. They've been sent out last week, so everybody has them now. I haven't received any comments from anybody yet, but certainly we'll answer anybody's concerns or questions if they have them as we get closer to the race on, to the 5K on the 22nd of November.
Okay, all right, and the date again is Saturday, the 22nd of November with that, okay? Right, that brings us to the end of the agenda. Is there any item that the board needs to put on the table before our next work session that will create any stoppage of town operations? Okay, seeing none, and there be no further business before the board will stand adjourned at 8:21 p.m.